Our first presentation is Artificial Intelligence, Help or Hype. Our presenter is Deb Stamba, VP of Solution Management at R4. Deb, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. Today I really want to talk about artificial intelligence, what it is, what it isn't, and provide some real-life examples of what it can do for you and your business. So before we get started into that, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction about me. I've been in technology for nearly 20 years with some very big companies like IBM and SAP. I've worked with a lot of consumer goods and retail organizations, so I have a pretty accurate perspective of the advances in technology as well as the stories and promises that got us to where we are today. Over the last 3 years, I've had the privilege of really working in what I like to call the art of the possible, which is the startup environment, in some very new and exciting businesses around big data, machine learning, and cloud that are helping organizations to really pivot and succeed within today's disruptive landscape. On a personal side, you can see here I live in the beautiful New York Hudson Valley. I have 3 kids and a husband, and I caught that CrossFit bug about 2 years ago. And while this is sort of an odd introduction for a business landscape, what I want you to take note of is this is exactly the kind of information that will help retailers and suppliers to know their customers and have an ability to sense and respond, to find customers that look alike and serve up that shopper-centric experience. This is what the DNA of good artificial intelligence is all about. So what is artificial intelligence? Before we dive deeper, it was invented about 50 years ago by a man of the name of Alan Turing, and quite simply, it's the science of computers learning how to think. So it's being commercialized today for a couple of reasons. Number one is the enormous value trapped inside of data. According to the World Economic Forum, there's about $100 trillion, trillion with a T, of value trapped inside of legacy systems. And while that's an astounding number, I think we all know that there's value. The value is there, right? In fact, 2/3 of C-suite executives expect revenue and profit increases between 5 and 15% from digital transformation. However, most believe that big data is, quite frankly, delivering less than 20% of that value. So the real opportunity for AI is to really take business to the next level. And we're at this confluence point, this tipping point that has led us here from a technology perspective. In the 1990s, we saw the advent of business intelligence with the ability to visualize historical information and report on it. In the 2000s, advanced analytics, data lakes, what some of our customers like to call their data swamps, came about around data cleansing and harmonization and trying to get to that perfect data. And now that storage is a commodity, right, you can turn on a set of servers in a heartbeat. We're at this tipping point where AI can truly help companies succeed as all of these capabilities have come together. And today's winners are really going to capitalize on artificial intelligence with the speed of markets and the flow of information that it can enable to really become those disruptors. And we'll talk about a little bit more about how that can happen for you. So artificial intelligence is really about an opportunity to become smarter and faster, to use machines to provide answers to the most complex problems and challenges so that we as humans can achieve greater profit, growth, and speed. So what isn't artificial intelligence? Now, before we go any further, right, it's not killer robots for those of us that remember HAL 9000 and Space Odyssey or The Matrix, a little bit more modern. And so while self-driving cars are interesting, it's really hard to apply to our business life. What I'd like to share with you is R4's version or R4's brand of artificial intelligence, what we like to call human or self-driving business. So a little bit about R4. R4 was founded by 4 of the 5 founders of Priceline.com and really rooted in 20 years of artificial intelligence-driven profit and revenue, what we like to call AI for the P&L. Now, besides giving William Shatner a second career, Priceline massive amounts of web data into individualized demand, tie that to locations, and turn that into dynamic pricing, and created an $80 billion business in travel with a 40% gross margin on a 3% industry average. Sort of sounds a little bit like CPG and retail. And those set of created 20 years ago by our founders are still cranking out that profitability today. So the experience of the R4 team is really rooted in leveraging data science and big data before it was called big data, and being successful with some of the buzzwords that we're all becoming familiar with around natural language processing and pattern recognition. Machine learning is really the foundation and the core of who we are at R4. And so we took that fundamental DNA of yield management and have applied it to a broader set of enterprise opportunities to automate recommendations around selling, around promotion, around direct-to-consumer, and offering up as a cloud service for P&L owners and delivering those results in an amazing 90 days. And this is the important part, without changing systems or people. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the industry. And we'll switch back to some of those examples in a second. Hopefully everybody can. John, can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you. You cut out just
okay, great. What I think we can sum up the state of the industry at this point is really around disruption, right? And before we go further, let's do a quick poll around how much do you feel your business is being disrupted by either technology or new entrants or changing business models. So let's give 30 seconds for folks to give some sort of answer to that. I see some of the answers coming in. Mostly on the high side, around strongly agree or agree. Thank you, Lori. Couple are neutral. I got one lonely disagree. Okay. Oh, here we go. Still on that high side. Well, I think we can all agree that this is disruption continues to be a driving force in how we're going to shape and change and drive our businesses going forward. What I want to talk about is two major aspects of disruption. The first is around understanding and dynamically adapting to our customers and our consumers. And we all know these disruptors on the left-hand side. In retail, Amazon continues to grow and take share. And I think beyond even Amazon, we can definitively say retail is changing, right? We need to do more than traditional category management to excel with new formats and new markets to really ensure that loyalty with shoppers and optimize the customer experience all the way from merchandising to new market location entry and new product mixes. For CPGs, the Wall Street Journal actually summed this up best just last week, and they quoted their headline, "Big name food brands lose the battle in the grocery aisle." While that's a sensational headline, I think it causes us to take pause as the landscape changes. We've got new go-to-market innovators like the Dollar Shave Club, and new product innovation continues to be a source of growth on smaller and smaller segments of the audience. So for those brands that were not natively built as disruptors, for those of us that have been operating and becoming household names over the past 20 or 30 years, how do we start to quickly understand and take action around customers and consumers and personal tastes and preferences? How do you take advantage of all of the data at your disposal without ripping apart your entire organization or changing everything you do? So how do you sense and respond in your current landscape, again, without changing those systems and people? It's a pretty daunting issue.
Deb, we had a question come in real quick here. How can technologies such as AI help people rather than replace them?
That's a great question, John, and it's one that we actually talk about a lot here at R4. And one of the things that we've seen over and over again with our clients is that, technology, and specifically, I'll say R4's brand of artificial intelligence, actually helps our clients do the job that they are the experts at and the job that they were hired to do. We've heard the story over and over again of clients spending an enormous amount of time just trying to bring the data together, whether you're a supply chain leader or a marketer or a buyer or a category manager. Just understanding the landscape is one of the biggest issues that our clients have, and our clients are often astounded by the fact of our ability to very quickly and seamlessly and easily bring together structured, unstructured, data across silos because we're using mathematics to basically find patterns within the data itself. So, long answer to your short question, what technology can do is actually help people to excel at the role that they were hired to drive. Again, whether that's on a marketing side, on a branding side, on a supply side, and really allow them to make the smartest, fastest decisions possible.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for the question. So this sort of brings me, it's a great segue because it brings me to, the next fundamental disruptor, which, is the data itself. And we sort of answered it just now. We've all heard, I think, the stat that data is doubling every 2 years. But the issue is that it's scattered everywhere. And companies like Walmart are spending millions of dollars in data cafes and data lakes trying to get to perfect data, but quite frankly, to what end, right? Because their ability to compete is still at risk as these disruptors are continuing to sense and respond in these new environments. And I can't tell you the number of colleagues that have come to me frustrated, right, with the inability to get answers from data that remain trapped in those legacy systems and silos. So the bigger question, I think, is how do you become the disruptor? How does this audience become the disruptor? How do the CPGs and the retailers at large become the disruptors of industry? So what if you could cure that frustration? What if you could combine and exploit internal and external data, all of the internal product and delivery, supply chain inventory, all of the data that you normally have at your disposal, although, again, is often hard to get at, and combine that with the external, the socioeconomic, the demographic, the traffic, the weather, crime data, et cetera, to really increase loyalty, optimize merchandising, market basket, inventory, and trade spend. That's really what AI is all about, and that's the promise that the right kind of AI and the right brand of AI can do for you. So let's talk a little bit about how that happens. If you think back to my personal intro, I told you some things about me both personally and professionally. And as human beings with that information, because we're smart, you could probably infer places near me, what I might be interested in. And it seems fairly logical that you could match or customize a product or a store to me as an audience of one. But doing that across thousands or millions of people and places, this is where the opportunity and the real value of AI comes into play. And all that data around the millions of people and places and things is the DNA of what disruption looks like. And what the right brand of AI should do for you is tell you exactly who to sell to, what to sell, where, when, and how on a store-by-store basis, and back that all the way up to your production and supply chain. And let me tell you, from the customers that we're working with, this is a very real proposition for both retailers and suppliers. The other thing that artificial intelligence can do for you is really pay off on that promise of collaboration by creating a pathway to growth and scaling a set of differentiated shopper experiences. For manufacturers or CPGs, this is about showing up with the right insights for those category discussions on product assortment, on a location-driven basis, on a demographic basis, driven by the demand of consumer tastes and preferences at those locations. For retailers, this is about moving from one-size-fits-all to a very localized and contextualized experience, and I'll show you some examples of both of these in a minute. And what this does is it really enables both sides to take advantage and elevate the shopper retail experience. So is AI just one thing, right? Is it one piece of the pie? Well, at R4, we like to say, and actually our Chief Revenue Officer, this is his line, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. So don't let perfect data or the need for perfect timing or an all-encompassing enterprise strategy prevent you or really hold you up from taking on and adopting artificial intelligence as a core means to drive a level of disruptive growth. But it does require, I will say, some strong leadership and a leadership team that is truly passionate about really disruptive growth, because while it doesn't require, artificial intelligence and adoption of that shouldn't require system changes or people changes, and in fact it should enhance those systems and people, it does require some behavior change, and behavior change can be hard. But there are a number of starting points where you can build a foundational view of your business through a very predictive and a very expansive artificial intelligence lens, and attack use cases and attack opportunities across the enterprise in a very practical way of where can you start with the lowest hanging fruit and ROI and move up the chain to very high value and high profitability. So before we get into some of these case studies, let me pause for a second and get to our second poll. Around given that landscape and given that backdrop, what are some of the problems that you think you can solve that would be on your wish list around discovering the right customers or predicting product and services, smarter selling, dynamic pricing and promotion, or personalized experience and cross-sell? So let me take a moment here, and an interesting mix across the board here. And so while those are coming in, those buckets that we saw on the previous page is really around, the right products, the right people, the right places, and the right time, and as well as price and context. And it's that fundamental matching problem, and in fact, that's what R4 stands for. So, when we think about selling, this is really about discovering the right customers and matching the right products, optimizing supply and demand on a store-by-store basis. When we think about our consumers, this is about knowing at a tight micro-audience level and finding lookalikes and optimizing merchandising and upsell across channels. And then finally, the AI promotion really brings it together where we localize or can contextualize offers and rewards and loyalty and price. So this is an interesting mix. I see a lot of folks, it's sort of on two ends, which is fascinating because it's where most of our customers get started, either on picking the right customers to sell on to bring the right products and the right assortment to market, or really personalizing and engaging that experience on an audience level and on a consumer level, finding those lookalikes, personalizing that experience, whether upsell, cross-sell, loyalty, or reward. So this audience is very much on point to where we've seen the market moving. So let me move into some of our examples now and some of our case studies to bring this to life and really bring it home. So my first example here is from one of the world's largest food, snack, and beverage companies. And we have been working with their vending business unit. It's a $300 million business. But they have been experiencing double-digit revenue declines, a lot of inefficiency in process, a lot of aging equipment, and we're really looking to R4 to help them to, turn this business around and help them drive profitability in something that had been around for the past 30 years. So what it looked like before R4 was, for example, so they had a series of vending machines, and they would load their trucks, let's say, every Monday and Thursday. The drivers would take these huge 18-wheelers out to each and every machine, walk out of the truck, check the inventory, walk back to the truck, figure out what products they had on hand. Sometimes they were able to restock the products that were empty. Sometimes they restocked those with lower profitability products, and sometimes they arrived and found the machines were not working altogether. So after R4, this was a really fascinating example because it combines a lot of the capabilities that we think are critical within an artificial intelligence landscape. So with R4, we set up a remote monitoring with sensor telemetry around inventory, machine repair in real time. We were able to dynamically optimize product assortment with the right SKUs on the right trucks on the right days for the right locations. So we were able to really help them optimize and take advantage not only of putting the right product in the right place, but even down to route optimization and delivery optimization. and using the self-learning algorithms to continuously improve results. So as different products were stocked for different locations, given demographics and socioeconomics of that environment, we were able to continuously improve recommendations and results that were delivered directly to those driver handhelds. The last piece of this, so if you think back to sort of our AI selling, AI promotion, AI experience chart, we designed and deployed a set of modernized self-service retail, which really was everything from mobile purchasing to loyalty to social engagement and even gamification on site. And this led to some amazing results. Starting with, and you can do the math, a 26% increase in sales on existing revenue, and that was really driven by a couple of things: out-of-stock elimination, optimal product assortment, and increased consumer engagement. We were also able to help them decrease costs around resupply delivery frequency and service time refill. And then one of the biggest results that they had was a 300%, that number is accurate, increase in forecast accuracy, because we were able to match localized demand to product assortment and delivery and take that, again, all the way back up the supply chain and automate those recommendations directly into the driver's handheld. John, I see a couple of questions.
Yeah, I see a question come in. That's correct, Deb. This one here is, can you go into more detail on the self-learning algorithm?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is pretty fascinating, and if we had our chief data scientist on, he would give some really a lot better detail. But what our self-learning algorithms do are two things. One is that within the R4 platform, we can teach the algorithms a set of rules and goals that the customer is trying to achieve, whether that's revenue or profit or volume or footprint expansion. Right? The self-learning algorithms are really take those rules and goals that we've supplied it with, and then continues to teach itself the patterns and start to recognize and surface the patterns and opportunities, and continues to get better over time. So that's what the self-learning algorithms. It's sort of a pairing of taught algorithms and self-learning algorithms that work together within the R4 platform.
Okay, great.
Cool. So let me move on to another example here, and this is around retail. This happens to be luxury retail, but really the issues remain the same. So this particular retailer is a very high-end retailer in Latin America, and they had a major issue around one-size-fits-all product assortment, right? All the same products would show up to all of their stores regardless of the demographics, the customer taste and preferences in that surrounding area. And so they had a very large percentage of merchandise markdown, which, as we all can infer, leads to lost profitability. So before R4 was implemented, here's what their process looked like. And I think we can sort of, best categorize this as unpredictable inventory turns and limited insight based on demographics. But I sort of referred to this earlier. They have a set of analysts that would spend weeks trying to bring together point-of-sale data, inventory data, depletion, and delivery data to really understand what should be the buying recommendations going forward. And what they did was really base those buying decisions on historical purchasing records. They would manually put those recommendations and those buying decisions into their SAP merchandise assortment planning, and they would end up with an identical product placement across all stores. And this led to a lot of markdown and unsold inventory across the board, especially in their women's department. So after R4, as they're implementing, this has been really an incredible story. And so what we were able to do was auto-ingest all of that data, so take away the weeks and weeks of just compiling data to understand what the state of the union is, and then we appended that with all of the demographic, the socioeconomic, and if you've ever been to Mexico City, the traffic data that is critical to understanding what the patterns of purchase are and what the patterns of demand could be for a given store. And not only did we localize the recommendations of product assortment down to a store level, but we were able to do it down to a department and even a SKU level for this luxury retailer. And as I mentioned before, right, we don't necessarily, without ripping or replacing and without changing systems and people, because this particular retailer operates within SAP, we're able to pipe those recommendations directly into their merchandise assortment planning system, and which can then deploy a set of recommendations and buying recommendations and delivery recommendations by SKU, by department, and by store. And as the results from a point-of-sale perspective continue to come in, those recommendations get smarter and smarter. And that's where that self-learning algorithm to the previous question really comes to light. That the algorithms continue to understand what are the patterns of demand, what are the patterns of opportunity, and how can we continue to improve and increase the revenue, the profitability, and the results.
Another question came in, Deb.
Sure.
This is all interesting, but how would you start with AI as a CPG company and as a retailer?
So if we think back to, and I can flip to it for a second, I think. If we think back to the chart that we started with in this section, really around what is AI or what is our Force brand of AI, really we see our clients starting on each of these two ends. And it was so ironic, the poll that came back, that that's where most people were focusing. Where folks seem to find the lowest hanging fruit and the highest quick return on investment is on either end of the spectrum, really around identifying your customers on a store-by-store basis, so really scoring and rating different outlets if you're a CPG, understanding what the opportunity and is with each of those outlets on a product basis, knowing what products to assort at those locations, and being able to put those recommendations directly into the hands of the sellers. The other end of the spectrum, and this is really for more of the retail side, is really around the AI experience. Because they have all of that POS data on hand, which is often not leveraged, this is a great opportunity using our Force brand of artificial intelligence to better understand micro-segments of audience, what their tastes, behaviors, needs, preferences are, and be able to match products, bundles, whether online, offline, as well as rewards, loyalty, and offers, so that so you really start to customize and create that shopper-centric experience. So it's no longer about, I'm going to put the same product in every store because that's what I've always done. It's how do I start to localize and contextualize the entire shopper experience, given everything I can know about my shoppers themselves. So it's really both ends of that spectrum there.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, John. I'm going to flip ahead real quick, if we can. We did retail. So my last example is sort of a pure manufacturer play, and this is a large beer and spirits manufacturer. And what they've been trying to do is really amp up their beer market share, especially as the craft producers. And we talked about these new disruptors around new product innovation have continued to come and attack their overall market. And if you know anything about beer and spirits in the United States, it's a highly complex system, different state rules and regulations, state by state. And so they operate with 450-plus large indirect distributor network. And what they're trying to achieve is to get mind share from those distributors. Each distributor carries dozens, if not hundreds, of different brands, which turns into thousands of SKUs. So how can they enable their distributors and their distributor sellers and reps and jobbers to show up at the locations where they're selling to with the right recommendations around product assortment, with the right context and the right rationale as to why those products belong in these locations? So what it looked like before R4 is a very generic distributor management system. As I said, over 450 complex indirect distributor network. And all of the selling was really driven by what did they order last month, right? No differentiation by the demographics or the end customers, and very generic product placement, and quite frankly, a very limited footprint expansion. Now, after R4, this is one of the most exciting implementations and use cases I think we've had in the last month or so. And what we did here was not just ingest all of the internal data of this particular manufacturer around delivery and production and product and inventory, but we combined that with the demographics, the socioeconomics, as well as social data. Because if you can imagine, right, for a beer and spirits distributor, they're not just selling to off-premise outlets like liquor stores or grocery. They're also selling into restaurants, bars, etc. So they need to understand on a social level, where are the hot spots? What are the menus? How can they start to pair the product with the menu itself? How can they understand where are the trends and who is going to those different on-premise outlets, bars, and restaurants, and really start to tailor that messaging so that as they provide recommendations into their hands of their distributors on that distributor handheld, that distributor can now walk in and talk about this particular manufacturer in a very insightful, very contextualized way, and they've been able to really optimize their revenue, their sales efficiency, their footprint expansion, as well as, and I talked about this earlier, really take that all the way back through inventory and production planning. So it really has enabled this particular manufacturer to optimize not just the revenue and the profitability in the selling process, but how do they back it all the way up into their manufacturing and production so that they can meet demand as they can on a predictive basis and continue to grow. And what's interesting about R4 is that, we haven't just done this in CPG and retail. What R4 has done is done this across media and financial services and healthcare and hard goods manufacturing. And the reason that we can do this, and I alluded to this in terms of our introduction to R4, is because that we are natively built to solve a set of fundamental go-to-market problems around selling and experience and promotion and pricing, and really those fundamental problems that most companies have in common. So before we get towards the end here, let me move on to the next poll, and let's see how if your company is considering artificial intelligence to help solve some of the complex business problems, how are you starting to think about it? Is it in-house? Is it outsourcing? I think this is a curious point, and we've seen the landscape shift across many different sort of decision points, and I'll talk about what we've heard from quite a few of our customers. Let's wait for a second. So some haven't considered yet. Some are already doing it in-house. That's great. Some are considering outsourcing. And it's a hard one, right? Because I think artificial intelligence is so new, and a lot of us aren't natively built, right, to have data science operating in their business. And so I think this is sort of, hopefully this is helping folks to get to where can they get started. So let me move towards the end of this, and then I'd love to, John, open it up to some questions here. So, and this slide actually always makes me laugh because we're actually a bunch of Star Wars nerds and fans here at R4. But the question that this poses is, how do you really get started and start to consider adopting artificial intelligence? And I think what I would like to leave this audience with is, 3 cautionary tales that we basically have heard from and garnered through hundreds of discussions and interactions with our clients themselves. The first cautionary tale is around do-it-yourself, and I applaud those that answer that they're already on it and they're already doing it themselves. But what we've heard and found with a lot of our customers is that this can be a very long, expensive, and not necessarily driving the kind of results that they're looking for, because from a competency perspective, a lot of our customers have told us, they don't want to become a data science and technology organization. What they want to be is great product manufacturers, great retailers, creating a great shopper experience. So their ability to be agile and industry leaders in a do-it-yourself kind of context is the odds of that are not so fantastic. The next cautionary tale is really around what we've heard from some of our clients who started with and then shut down engagements with some of the big and complex providers out there. And I'll just say from a personal level, given my heritage and I think a lot of our own experience, a lot of those complex big systems come with their own levels of complexity and create new complexity that was really unanticipated and not desired in the first place. And the last piece is on point solutions, and point solutions are interesting because I think while oftentimes they are excellent at doing exactly what they promise to do, whether that's around promotion or finding customers, it leads us basically back to where we are today in a set of siloed thinking and a siloed framework that really got us to where we are today. So in conclusion, I think as an industry and as leaders in an industry, we're really at an amazing time and tipping point with an opportunity to become the disruptors. And it's going to be a fascinating journey as we look at the verdict in 2 or 5 or 10 years as to whether AI really does become help or hype. And I think what we're already seeing is that it is help for so many disruptors out there, and it's really going to be up to all of us and entirely up to all of you as leaders in CPG and retail as whether it becomes help or hype for your business. So with that, John, I think I'd love to open it up to some additional questions.
Sure. We have a couple of questions that come in the last 5-10 minutes.
Great.
One is scanner data such as IRI or Nielsen considered AI?
So scanner data can be an input to artificial intelligence. The way I'll say from an R4 perspective that scanner data is, data is a piece of information and can create a set of attributes and a set of insights, right? But it has to be combined around a specific goal and a specific business KPI for it to really be useful. So I wouldn't say that scanner data is artificial intelligence. It can absolutely be an input to artificial intelligence. And working across all of our customers, IRI, Nielsen, et cetera, these are absolute inputs and some of the, external data that we continuously ingest and leverage on behalf of our customers.
Okay, one more. How would you recommend a multi-brand company with independent manufacturers approach using AI?
That's a great question. So a couple of ways. I think number one is, what we'll often do with our clients is look for, a very practical starting point. So oftentimes there is one brand or, that really has an opportunity, whether from a abundance and diversity and velocity of data availability, or that the business is in such poor shape that there is a burning platform to really get started. So what we would normally recommend is starting in sort of one spot and then using that as an expansion point to other parts of the organization. Because what we found, and we've seen this over and over again, is that we'll start with what we call AI selling, right? Is product assortment and delivering that directly into the hands of the sellers. And then once that starts moving, then our customers say, well, I want to optimize now my production as well. So how do I expand that foundation back into my production line? And so, what I would recommend is starting with sort of your lowest hanging fruit, your burning platform. But then what the benefit of good artificial intelligence does is creates a data foundation that can then be leveraged and expanded very quickly and for small incremental cost, at least in our perspective, across the enterprise. So we've seen some of our clients that are P&E firms look across all of their properties and look across multiple brands that they're managing to use artificial intelligence to really optimize, supply chains, optimize product or raw material purchasing, optimize delivery, as well as really, work across customer sets and customer experience so that they can, get a predictive and much more customer experience geared execution and go to market across multiple brands.
Okay, thanks, Deb. That was very interesting. Actually, it was fascinating and a nice view into the future. If you'd like more information, you can contact Deb directly. You can see her contact information on the screen right now, and also the website www.r4.co. So thank you, Deb.